In a small, upscale town, an accomplished black CEO faces constant microaggressions and racial profiling that challenge both his career and personal life. When he's wrongfully targeted by a corrupt officer, Officer Daniels, his calm demeanor and professional standing are no match for the prejudice he endures. From a tense encounter at a luxury store to a deeply humiliating run-in with law enforcement, the story builds a relentless tension, pushing the protagonist toward a breaking point. As the stakes rise, his fight for justice grows more urgent. Will he overcome the systemic racism threatening everything he's worked for? The morning sun streamed through the large windows of Greenwood Community Cafe, casting a warm glow over the eclectic mix of patrons. Nestled in the heart of a bustling suburban neighborhood, the cafe was a favorite among locals for its cozy ambiance and the inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Today, like most days, the cafe buzzed with the soft hum of conversations, the clinking of cups, and the gentle strumming of a guitarist in the corner. At a corner table by the window sat Dr. Aisha Thompson, a 45-year-old renowned neurosurgeon and the CEO of Thompson Medical Innovations. Despite her towering presence in the medical community, Aisha preferred understated elegance in her attire. Today's choice was a simple navy blue blouse paired with well-fitted jeans and comfortable loafers. Her hair, intricately braided, framed her face with a natural grace that belied the intensity of her work. Aisha was no stranger to the limelight. Her contributions to neurosurgery had earned her numerous accolades, and her leadership had transformed her company into a beacon of medical advancement. Yet, she remained grounded, often opting for public appearances that felt genuine and unpretentious. Today, however, she sought solace in the familiarity of the cafe, a place where she could momentarily shed her professional armor. As she sipped her latte, Aisha's eyes scanned the room, observing the diverse clientele: parents with restless children, freelancers typing away on laptops, elderly couples reminiscing over shared memories. Each person seemed to find their own rhythm within the cafe's welcoming walls. It was moments like these that reminded her of the importance of balance, of finding peace amidst the chaos of her demanding career. Her phone buzzed on the table, displaying a message from her executive assistant. "Meeting rescheduled to 3 p.m., please be on time." Aisha smiled faintly, appreciating the efficiency her team maintained. She was proud of how Thompson Medical Innovations thrived under her guidance, fostering an environment where innovation met compassion. As she prepared to leave, Aisha noticed a new face at the counter, a young woman with a nervous demeanor, fumbling with the menu. Aisha's empathetic nature compelled her to offer assistance. She approached the counter with a warm smile. "First time here?" Aisha asked, her voice gentle yet confident. The young woman looked up, momentarily startled by the presence of such a distinguished individual. "Yes, I just moved to the neighborhood," she replied, her accent hinting at a recent relocation from abroad. "I'm trying to find the best latte in town." Aisha chuckled softly. "You've come to the right place, I promise. It doesn't disappoint. If you need any recommendations, I'd be happy to help." The woman's tension eased, and she returned the smile. "Thank you, I'm Maria, by the way." "Aisha," she introduced herself. "Welcome to the community." As Aisha returned to her table, she couldn't shake the feeling that today was just an ordinary day, mundane yet comforting. Little did she know that this simplicity was about to be disrupted, challenging not only her professional standing, but also the very essence of who she was. The clock in the cafe ticked steadily towards noon, and Aisha began to gather her belongings, preparing to step back into the fray of her responsibilities. As she stood up, a commotion at the entrance caught her attention. A group of young men entered, their swagger contrasting sharply with the cafe's serene atmosphere. One of them, clearly the leader, scanned the room with a critical eye before making a beeline for the counter. Aisha watched as the man approached the barista, his tone dismissive. "I'll have a black coffee, and make it quick." The barista nodded, her hands already moving to fulfill the order. The man's demeanor was different from the usual patrons. There was an undercurrent of entitlement that didn't sit well with Aisha. She couldn't pinpoint why, but something about the interaction felt off. As she turned to leave, the man's gaze met hers. For a brief moment, their eyes locked. Aisha could sense a flicker of recognition, or perhaps misrecognition, in his stare. It was subtle, easily dismissed in the hustle of daily life, but her intuition told her to stay alert. Aisha pushed open the cafe door, the bell chiming softly as she stepped outside. The air was crisp, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the surrounding trees. She made her way down the sidewalk, her mind already shifting gears to focus on the afternoon's engagements. Yet, the unease lingered, a whisper at the back of her mind, urging her to pay attention. As she walked, Aisha reflected on the duality of her life. By day, she navigated the high-stakes world of medical innovation, making decisions that could alter lives and push the boundaries of science. By evening, she sought the simple pleasures of community and connection, grounding herself in the lives of those she served. It was a delicate balance, one that required constant adjustment and unwavering commitment. The neighborhood was alive with the sounds of daily life, children laughing as they played in the nearby park, neighbors chatting over fences, and the distant hum of traffic blending into a comforting background noise. Aisha appreciated these small moments of normalcy, especially given the challenges she faced in her role. Despite her success, she was acutely aware of the systemic obstacles that still lingered, especially for someone of her background. As a black woman in a position of power, Aisha often found herself navigating unspoken expectations and biases. While her achievements commanded respect, there were still moments when her authority was questioned or her intentions doubted. It was a constant undercurrent, one that required her to be both strong and empathetic, to lead with both head and heart. Her path led her to a small-town courthouse, where she was scheduled to attend a community outreach meeting. Thompson Medical Innovations had partnered with local health organizations to provide free medical services and education, and Aisha was committed to ensuring the initiative's success. The courthouse, with its historic facade and stone steps, stood as a symbol of justice and community, a fitting venue for her endeavors. Inside, the air was cool and quiet. A stark contrast to the vibrant energy of the cafe, Aisha was greeted by Officer Daniel Reynolds, a tall man with a kind demeanor and a firm handshake. "Dr. Thompson, it's a pleasure to have you here," he said, leading her to a conference room filled with community leaders and volunteers. As the meeting commenced, Aisha shared her vision for expanding medical services and fostering healthier communities. Her words were met with enthusiastic nods and appreciative smiles, reinforcing her belief in the importance of her work. However, beneath the surface of these interactions, Aisha sensed subtle tensions, whispers that hinted at underlying issues yet to be addressed. After the meeting, Aisha decided to take a moment for herself, stepping outside onto the courthouse steps. The sun had begun its descent, casting long shadows across the pavement. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages and emails, her mind already racing ahead to the next tasks on her agenda. It was then that she noticed a familiar face lingering near the entrance, one of the young men from the cafe. His presence was unexpected, especially in such a quiet setting. Aisha's heart skipped a beat, the earlier unease resurfacing. She wondered if it was a coincidence or something more. Gathering her composure, Aisha approached him, her steps measured and calm. "Hi there," she began, offering a friendly smile. "We met earlier today at the cafe. I'm Aisha." The man looked momentarily taken aback, his confident facade wavering. "Oh, yes, I'm Marcus," he replied, extending a hand. Aisha shook his hand firmly. "Nice to meet you, Marcus. Is there something I can help you with?" Marcus hesitated, his eyes darting away before meeting hers again. "Actually, I wanted to apologize for how I acted earlier. It was uncalled for." Aisha nodded, her expression understanding. "Thank you for saying that. We all have our off days." Marcus exhaled, a mix of relief and embarrassment evident in his demeanor. "I guess I let the stress get to me. It's just been a rough week." Aisha sensed the sincerity in his words. "I understand. If you ever need someone to talk to, or if there's anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out." Marcus offered a genuine smile this time. "I appreciate that. Maybe I took things a bit too far." Aisha placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we move forward from them." As Marcus walked away, Aisha felt a sense of fulfillment. Helping others, whether through her work or simple acts of kindness, was a cornerstone of her philosophy. Yet, as she turned to head back inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter was more than mere coincidence, There was an unspoken connection, a shared understanding that their paths were intertwined in ways neither could yet comprehend. The evening air had cooled by the time Aisha returned to her car, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink. She reflected on the day's events, the successful meeting, the brief but meaningful interaction with Maria, and now, Marcus. There was a sense of anticipation building within her, a feeling that the calm of today was a precursor to something more significant on the horizon. As she drove home, the city lights twinkled against the darkening sky, each one a reminder of the lives and stories unfolding around her. Aisha knew that her journey was far from over, that the challenges she faced were both personal and systemic. But with each step she took, she was determined to bridge gaps, break barriers, and create a legacy of compassion and resilience. That night, as Aisha settled into her favorite armchair with a book, her mind wandered back to the day she couldn't help but ponder the subtle tensions she'd sensed, the unspoken struggles and the silent battles that so many faced. It was a reminder of why she did what she did, why she fought so hard to make a difference beyond the operating room and the boardroom. Little did she know, the seeds of change had already been sown, and the coming days would test her in ways she had never anticipated. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of peace, embracing the quiet strength that had carried her through countless challenges. The next morning dawned clear and bright, the sun casting a promising light over the city as Dr. Aisha Thompson prepared for another day at Thompson Medical Innovations. Her home office, a spacious room adorned with certificates and accolades, reflected both her professional achievements and her personal commitment to fostering a warm, collaborative environment. Aisha reviewed her schedule for the day, noting meetings with potential partners, strategy sessions with her team, and a few community outreach initiatives that remained a priority despite her demanding role. As she sipped her morning tea, her phone buzzed with a reminder. Board meeting, 10 a.m. Aisha glanced at the clock, feeling the familiar surge of purpose that came with leading her company. She admired how Thompson Medical Innovations had grown under her leadership, not just in terms of revenue, but also in its mission to make cutting-edge medical technologies accessible to underserved communities. Today, however, something felt different. There was an undercurrent of tension she couldn't quite place, a subtle hint that the day's proceedings might not unfold as smoothly as usual. Shaking off the feeling, Aisha donned her favorite blazer, a symbol of her professionalism, and headed out the door, her mind focused on the tasks ahead. Upon arriving at the company's sleek downtown headquarters, Aisha was greeted by the receptionist, a young woman named Clara, who always seemed to have a cheerful disposition. "Good morning, Dr. Thompson. The board members are ready for you in the conference room," Clara announced with a bright smile. "Thank you, Clara," Aisha replied, her voice warm. She walked down the polished hallway, her heels clicking rhythmically against the marble floor. The conference room doors opened to reveal a group of individuals awaiting her arrival. Among them was Jameson Lee, a seasoned board member known for his conservative approach to business, and Karen Mitchell, the head of marketing, whose enthusiasm often propelled the company's latest campaigns. As Aisha took her seat at the head of the table, Jameson leaned forward, his expression serious. "Aisha, we've been reviewing the latest quarterly reports, and while the numbers are impressive, there are concerns about the recent expansion into international markets. Some board members feel we're moving too quickly without adequate risk assessments." Aisha listened attentively, maintaining her composure despite the critical tone. "I understand the concerns, Jameson. However, our research indicates significant demand in these regions, and our partnerships there are robust. We've also implemented additional risk mitigation strategies to ensure a smooth expansion." Karen chimed in, her voice upbeat. "Absolutely. The feedback from our international partners has been overwhelmingly positive. This is a strategic move that aligns with our long-term goals." Despite the supportive remarks, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The underlying tension in the room suggested that not everyone was on board with her vision, and she sensed that there might be more to their reservations than just the data. As the meeting progressed, Aisha addressed each concern with clarity and confidence, her expertise evident in every response. Yet, as the discussion drew to a close, Jameson leaned back, his demeanor less confrontational, but still guarded. "Aisha, I appreciate your thoroughness, but I think it would be prudent to slow down our international ventures. Let's revisit this in the next quarter, after a more comprehensive review." Aisha nodded, masking her disappointment with a professional smile. "I understand. I'll ensure that we provide all necessary data and projections for a more detailed analysis next quarter." The meeting adjourned, and Aisha felt a mix of relief and frustration. She valued Jameson's experience and knew that his reservations stemmed from a place of caution, but she couldn't ignore the subtle undertones that hinted at deeper issues. As she gathered her notes, Clara approached her with a sympathetic look. "Rough meeting?" Clara asked quietly. Aisha sighed, offering a small smile. "A bit more than usual. It's nothing I can't handle, though." Clara nodded, her eyes reflecting genuine concern. "If you need anything, just let me know." Aisha appreciated the gesture and decided to take a short walk to clear her mind before diving into her next set of tasks. The company's rooftop garden was her favorite spot, a serene oasis amidst the urban hustle. As she walked, she pondered the meeting, wondering if there were unspoken biases at play or if the resistance was purely strategic. Reaching the rooftop, Aisha was greeted by the sight of meticulously maintained flower beds and comfortable seating areas that encouraged relaxation and informal discussions. She took a seat on a bench, enjoying the fresh air and the panoramic view of the city skyline. The calmness of the garden provided a stark contrast to the tension she felt inside the conference room. Lost in thought, Aisha didn't notice the figure approaching until he was right beside her. It was Officer Michael Harris, a local police officer who often collaborated with her on community health initiatives. His presence was usually a welcome sight, a reminder of the positive relationships she had cultivated outside the corporate sphere. "Good morning, Dr. Thompson," Michael greeted, his tone friendly. "Good morning, Michael," Aisha replied, returning his smile. "It's a beautiful day, isn't it?" "It is," he agreed, taking a seat beside her. "I wanted to talk to you about the upcoming health fair. We're finalizing the logistics and could use your input on the medical booth setup." Aisha nodded, eager to shift her focus to the community project. "Absolutely, I'm happy to help in any way I can." As they discussed the event, Aisha felt the familiar sense of purpose that came with her community work. Yet, a lingering unease from the previous meeting tugged at the edges of her consciousness. She brushed it aside, choosing to immerse herself in the conversation. Later that afternoon, Aisha received an urgent call from Nina Morales, the head of human resources. "Aisha, could you come to my office for a moment? It's about a new policy update." "Of course, Nina. I'll be right there," Aisha responded, her curiosity piqued. In Nina's office, the atmosphere was noticeably different, tenser, more formal. Nina stood as Aisha entered, holding a stack of documents. "We've implemented some new compliance policies that affect all departments. I need you to review and acknowledge them by the end of the day." Aisha took the papers, scanning through the changes. Most were standard updates, but one section caught her attention: diversity and inclusion compliance. The language was more stringent, emphasizing mandatory sensitivity training and stricter protocols for interactions both within the company and with external partners. Aisha raised an eyebrow, sensing the significance. "Is there a particular reason for these changes, Nina?" Nina hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "We've received feedback from several sources about the need for enhanced diversity measures. It's part of our ongoing effort to foster a more inclusive workplace." Aisha nodded thoughtfully. "I see. I'll make sure the teams are informed and compliant." As she left Nina's office, Aisha couldn't help but wonder if these changes were a response to something specific or part of a broader initiative. The timing seemed slightly off, following the earlier meeting where her strategies were questioned. Yet, without concrete evidence, she chose to remain optimistic. Later that evening, Aisha attended a dinner meeting with her executive team. The restaurant was an upscale venue known for its quiet elegance, a favorite spot for business gatherings. As she walked in, she was greeted by Samuel Rodriguez, the CFO, whose meticulous nature ensured the company's financial stability. "Good evening, Aisha," Samuel greeted her warmly. "Please, have a seat." "Good evening, Samuel. It's good to see you," Aisha replied, taking her place at the table. The dinner commenced with pleasant conversation, discussing the day's events and upcoming projects. However, As the night progressed, Aisha noticed subtle shifts in the team's demeanor. Glances exchanged between Jameson and Karen grew more frequent, and the supportive atmosphere began to wane. Towards the end of the meal, Samuel leaned in, his expression serious. "Aisha, there's something we need to discuss. It's about the recent feedback and the new policies." Aisha felt her heart rate increase, a sense of foreboding settling in. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Samuel took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "We've received some concerns from stakeholders regarding the pace of our international expansion and the recent community feedback. There are suggestions that we might be overlooking some internal dynamics that need addressing." Aisha remained calm, masking her anxiety. "I appreciate the feedback, Samuel. Can you elaborate on what specific issues are being raised?" Before Samuel could respond, Jameson interjected, his tone more direct than before. "Aisha, it's not just about the expansion. There are underlying issues related to how we're managing our diversity initiatives. Some board members feel that we're not doing enough to ensure that our leadership remains diverse and inclusive." Aisha felt a knot form in her stomach. "I have always prioritized diversity and inclusion in our hiring and leadership practices. If there are specific concerns, I'd like to address them directly." Karen chimed in, her voice tinged with frustration. "It's not just about hiring practices, Aisha. It's about the overall company culture. There are whispers that leadership isn't as approachable or inclusive as it should be, especially for minority employees." Aisha's calm facade began to crack, though she maintained her composure outwardly. "I take these concerns very seriously. Can you provide specific examples or incidents so that we can work on improving our environment?" Samuel glanced at Jameson, who nodded subtly before responding. "It's more of a general sentiment, but there's a growing feeling that decisions are being made without sufficient input from diverse voices within the company." Aisha took a moment to process the information, her mind racing through possible explanations and solutions. "I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I will initiate a thorough review of our current practices and seek feedback from all team members to ensure that everyone feels heard and valued." Jameson leaned back, his expression softening slightly. "That's all we ask, Aisha. We believe in the company's mission and want to ensure that we're all aligned in fostering an inclusive and supportive environment." As the conversation moved forward, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that these discussions were more about challenging her leadership than seeking genuine improvement. The subtle criticisms and the lack of specific instances made her wonder if there were deeper, perhaps unspoken issues at play. After dinner, Aisha returned to her car, her mind heavy with the day's revelations. The city's evening lights blurred past as she navigated the traffic, her thoughts a whirlwind of strategies and concerns. She knew that addressing these issues was paramount, not just for the company's success, but also for her personal integrity and commitment to fostering an inclusive environment. Arriving home, Aisha found solace in her nightly routine. She prepared a simple dinner, enjoying the quiet of her spacious kitchen. As she ate, she reflected on the day's events, the meetings, and the underlying tensions that seemed to permeate every interaction. It was a stark reminder that leadership was not just about making decisions, but also about navigating the complex web of interpersonal dynamics and societal expectations. Later, as she settled into her armchair with a book, Aisha's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a notification from her social media account, a message from a colleague at a recent community outreach event. "Aisha, incredible work today. The community is so grateful for everything you do." Aisha smiled, feeling a momentary lift from the affirmation. But the positive feedback couldn't completely dispel the unease that lingered from her professional interactions. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, and reminded herself of her resilience and dedication. The following day, Aisha arrived at the office with a renewed sense of determination. She scheduled a series of meetings to gather feedback from her team, aiming to understand their perspectives and address any underlying concerns. As she navigated through these discussions, she remained attentive and open, her empathy evident in every interaction. However, not everyone was as receptive. During a meeting with the marketing team, Linda Brooks, a longtime employee, expressed her concerns more bluntly. "Aisha, while I appreciate your efforts, sometimes it feels like our voices aren't being fully heard in the decision-making process. We're all committed to the company's success, But inclusivity means more than just policies. It means active listening and genuine engagement. Aisha nodded, recognizing the validity of Linda's points. Thank you for sharing that, Linda. Your feedback is invaluable, and I want to ensure that everyone feels empowered to contribute their ideas and perspectives. Let's work together to create more avenues for open dialogue. As the day progressed, Aisha felt the weight of her responsibilities pressing down on her. Balancing the expectations of the board, addressing employee concerns, and maintaining her commitment to community initiatives was no small feat. Yet, she remained steadfast, driven by her unwavering belief in the company's mission and her dedication to fostering an inclusive environment. Later that afternoon, as Aisha was reviewing reports in her office, her assistant, Rachel, entered with a concerned expression. Aisha, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. Please, send him in, Aisha replied, her curiosity piqued. A few moments later, a man in his early 30s walked into her office, his demeanor cautious but respectful. Dr. Thompson, my name is David Carter. I'm with the local community board. Aisha gestured for him to take a seat. Nice to meet you, David. How can I help you? David took a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers with a mix of determination and hesitation. I wanted to discuss some concerns that have been raised about our recent projects and company policies. Specifically, there are worries about how our initiatives are impacting minority communities and whether we're truly considering their needs. Aisha leaned forward, her expression attentive. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. Can you provide more details about these concerns? David nodded, pulling out a folder from his briefcase. There have been several instances where our outreach programs were perceived as top-down initiatives, lacking genuine engagement with the communities they're meant to serve. Additionally, some feel that our leadership doesn't fully represent the diversity of the population we aim to help. Aisha's mind raced, connecting the dots between the board meeting, the HR policies, and now these community concerns. I understand these are serious issues, and I want to address them comprehensively. What specific steps do you suggest we take to improve our engagement and representation? David hesitated for a moment before speaking. First, we need to involve community members in the planning and decision-making processes. Their insights are crucial for creating effective and respectful programs. Second, increasing diversity within our leadership team will help ensure that different perspectives are considered. Aisha nodded thoughtfully. These are excellent suggestions. I'll initiate a review of our current engagement strategies and work on diversifying our leadership roles. In the meantime, I'd like to establish a task force that includes community representatives to guide our initiatives moving forward. David's expression softened, a hint of relief evident in his eyes. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. I believe these steps will make a significant difference and help rebuild trust within the community. As David left her office, Aisha felt a renewed sense of purpose. The interconnectedness of her professional and community responsibilities was clearer than ever, and she was determined to bridge the gaps that had been highlighted. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that these challenges were just the beginning, setting the stage for more profound conflicts to come. That evening, as Aisha reviewed the notes from her meeting with David, she received another notification on her phone, a message from Marcus. Hey Aisha, great job at the courthouse today. Let's catch up soon. Aisha smiled, appreciating the gesture. Thank you, Marcus. I'd like that. She decided to reach out, suggesting they meet for coffee the following week to discuss potential collaborations between their respective initiatives. As she sent the message, a sense of anticipation mingled with the lingering tension from her professional challenges. Days turned into weeks, and Aisha threw herself into her work, balancing board meetings, employee feedback sessions, and community collaborations. The initial conflict regarding her company's expansion had unearthed deeper issues that required her attention and empathy. She implemented the changes discussed, establishing open forums for employee feedback and actively seeking input from community leaders. Yet, despite her efforts, the underlying tensions persisted. There were moments when subtle biases and microaggressions surfaced, testing her patience and resolve. During a team meeting, a colleague made a dismissive remark about the effectiveness of her diversity initiatives, questioning whether they were genuinely making an impact or merely ticking boxes. Aisha chose to address it head-on, her voice steady. I believe our diversity initiatives are essential for our growth and success. It's not just about representation, it's about fostering an environment where every team member feels valued and heard. If there are concerns or suggestions on how we can improve, I'm open to discussing them. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Some nodded in agreement, while others looked away, uncomfortable with the confrontation. Aisha's stance reinforced her commitment to her values, even in the face of resistance. One afternoon, as Aisha was finalizing reports in her office, her phone buzzed with an alert. A local news outlet had published a story highlighting the recent challenges faced by Thomson Medical Innovations, focusing on the internal struggles with diversity and inclusion. The headline read, "Leading Medical Innovator Faces Internal Struggles Over Diversity Initiatives." Aisha felt a surge of frustration, but maintained her composure. She understood the importance of transparency and was prepared to address the issue publicly. However, the sudden media attention added another layer of complexity to her already demanding role. As she prepared a statement for the press, acknowledging the challenges and outlining the steps the company was taking to address them, she couldn't help but reflect on the systemic biases that often hindered progress. Her position of power and influence made her a target for scrutiny, but she remained steadfast in her mission to create meaningful change. That evening, Aisha attended a community dinner organized by Thomson Medical Innovations, aiming to foster better relationships and open dialogue with local residents. The event was held at a modest community center, its walls adorned with banners promoting health and wellness initiatives. As she mingled with attendees, Aisha noticed a recurring theme in the conversations: appreciation for her leadership, but also lingering concerns about the company's direction. It was a delicate balance, navigating the fine line between maintaining her authority and genuinely addressing the community's needs. During a break, Aisha found herself engaged in a conversation with Officer Michael Harris, who had become a trusted ally in her community efforts. "Aisha, I've been thinking about how we can further support our initiatives. Perhaps we could organize joint workshops that address both health and social issues in our community." Aisha smiled, grateful for the collaborative spirit. "That's a fantastic idea. Michael, integrating our efforts could lead to more comprehensive support for those we aim to help." As the night progressed, Aisha felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that her efforts were making a tangible difference. Yet, the challenges she faced in the corporate world continued to weigh on her, a constant reminder of the systemic barriers that persisted despite her best efforts. Returning home that night, Aisha reflected on the day's events. The positive interactions at the community dinner contrasted sharply with the internal conflicts at work, highlighting the multifaceted nature of her role. She knew that addressing these issues required not just policy changes, but also a shift in mindset and culture, a daunting yet essential task. As she settled into her armchair, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Karen Mitchell. "Aisha, can we schedule a meeting tomorrow? Need to discuss the marketing strategy for the new initiative." "Sure thing, Karen. Let's find a time that works for both of us," Aisha replied, her mind already considering the best approaches to address the ongoing concerns. Little did she know, the mounting pressures and underlying tensions were about to culminate in a situation that would test her resilience and leadership like never before. The seeds of conflict had been sown, and the next steps would determine not only the future of her company, but also her personal journey towards creating a more just and inclusive environment. The following morning, the atmosphere at Thomson Medical Innovations was thick with tension. Aisha arrived at the office early, the weight of recent events pressing heavily on her shoulders. The board meeting from the previous week replayed in her mind, each moment of subtle resistance and veiled criticism, amplifying her concerns about the company's direction and internal dynamics. As she entered her office, her assistant Rachel greeted her with a tentative smile. "Good morning, Dr. Thompson. There's someone here to see you." Aisha nodded, sensing the seriousness in Rachel's tone. "Please, send them in." A few moments later, Jameson Lee entered, his expression unreadable. He gestured for Aisha to follow him to a private conference room down the hall. The door closed behind them, isolating them from the bustling office environment. "Jameson, what's this about?" Aisha asked, her voice calm but edged with concern. Jameson took a seat, folding his hands on the table. "Aisha, we've been receiving feedback from several key stakeholders about our recent initiatives. There are serious concerns about how our diversity programs are being perceived externally. Aisha leaned forward, her eyes meeting his. I'm aware of some concerns, but they seem to stem from internal feedback we've already addressed. What specifically are the stakeholders saying? Jameson sighed, running a hand through his hair. They feel that our efforts are superficial and that we're not making meaningful changes. Some are even questioning your leadership and commitment to true inclusivity. Aisha felt a pang of frustration, but maintained her composure. Jameson, we've implemented comprehensive diversity training and increased representation in leadership roles. If there are gaps, I'm committed to identifying and addressing them. Jameson shook his head. It's not just about policies, Aisha. It's about the culture we've cultivated. There are whispers that minority employees don't feel valued or heard, and that's damaging our reputation and employee morale. Aisha's mind raced, connecting these concerns with the recent media attention and internal resistance. I understand the gravity of these issues. We need to take immediate and concrete actions to rebuild trust and demonstrate our genuine commitment to diversity and inclusion. Before Jameson could respond, Karen Mitchell entered the room, her expression a mix of concern and determination. Aisha, I've been reviewing the latest feedback, and there are reports of microaggressions and dismissive behavior from some team members. It's creating a hostile environment for our minority employees. Aisha nodded, her internal struggle evident. She had always prided herself on fostering an inclusive workplace, but these revelations indicated that more needed to be done. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Karen. We need to address these issues head-on. I'm considering bringing in an external consultant to conduct a thorough review of our company culture. Karen's eyes softened. That's a good start, but we also need to implement ongoing training and create safe spaces for employees to voice their concerns without fear of retribution. Aisha reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on Karen's arm. I appreciate your support and honesty. Together, we'll make the necessary changes to ensure Thompson Medical Innovations is a place where everyone feels respected and valued. As the meeting concluded, Aisha felt a renewed sense of purpose. Addressing these deep-seated issues would require time, effort, and unwavering commitment. But she was determined to lead her company through this challenging period. Later that day, Aisha attended a community board meeting with David Carter, the local community leader she had met earlier. The room was filled with residents, activists, and local officials, all eager to discuss the impact of Thompson Medical Innovations on the community. As Aisha began her presentation, outlining the company's commitment to expanding healthcare services and fostering community partnerships, she noticed a group of individuals in the back of the room exchanging knowing glances. Among them was Officer Daniel Daniels, a high-ranking police officer with a reputation for upholding traditional values and a skeptical view of corporate initiatives. After her presentation, David approached her with a concerned look. Aisha, we need to talk. There are rumors spreading that your company is not as committed to diversity as it claims. Some community members feel alienated and distrustful of your initiatives. Aisha took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. David, I assure you that our commitment to diversity and inclusion is genuine. We're actively working to address internal concerns and ensure that our programs are effective and respectful of the community's needs. David nodded slowly. I hope so, Aisha. The community's trust is paramount, and we need to ensure that your initiatives are truly benefiting everyone. As Aisha left the meeting, she felt the weight of the community's expectations pressing down on her. The challenges within her company were mirrored in the external perceptions of her initiatives, creating a perfect storm of scrutiny and pressure. That evening, Aisha received an urgent call from Samuel Rodriguez, the CFO. Aisha, we have a situation. A whistleblower has come forward with allegations of systemic corruption within our international expansion team. They claim that certain members are bypassing protocols for personal gain. Aisha's heart sank. Are these allegations substantiated? Samuel shook his head, though Aisha couldn't see him. Not yet, but the whistleblower has provided some evidence that requires immediate attention. We need to initiate an internal investigation and possibly involve external auditors. Aisha felt a surge of frustration. Just when she thought she was addressing one set of challenges, another emerged. I'll handle it, Samuel. ensure that the whistleblower is protected, and that we maintain confidentiality throughout the investigation." As she hung up the phone, Aisha couldn't help but feel the cumulative pressure of the day. Corporate challenges, community skepticism, and now allegations of corruption threatened to undermine everything she had worked so hard to build. Yet, amidst the chaos, her resolve remained unshaken. The following morning, Aisha arrived at the office with a clear plan. She convened an emergency meeting with her executive team to address the whistleblower's allegations. As they discussed the steps to initiate the investigation, Aisha emphasized the importance of transparency and integrity. "We need to approach this systematically," Aisha stated firmly. "Our priority is to uncover the truth and take appropriate action based on the findings. We must demonstrate that Thompson Medical Innovations does not tolerate any form of corruption or misconduct." As the meeting progressed, Aisha noticed Officer Daniels seated in the back, observing silently. His presence felt like an ominous shadow, a reminder of the systemic biases and challenges she was up against. She wondered if his skepticism extended beyond the community to the very core of her company's values. Later that afternoon, Aisha received another message from Marcus. "Let's meet to discuss potential collaborations. It could help bridge some of the gaps we're facing." Aisha agreed, hoping that partnering with someone who understood both corporate and community dynamics could provide a fresh perspective. As she left the office to meet Marcus, she felt a fleeting sense of hope amidst the turmoil. The meeting with Marcus took place at a quiet, upscale cafe, a neutral ground where they could talk openly. Marcus arrived punctually, his demeanor sincere and focused. "Aisha, I've been thinking about how we can leverage our strengths to address both the internal and external challenges you're facing," Marcus began. "Perhaps a joint initiative that combines your medical expertise with my community outreach programs could create a more unified and impactful approach." Aisha listened intently, intrigued by the idea. "That sounds promising. We could create programs that not only provide healthcare services, but also actively involve community members in the planning and implementation process. This would ensure that our initiatives are truly meeting their needs." Marcus nodded, his eyes reflecting his commitment. "Exactly. And by working together, we can demonstrate to both your employees and the community that Thompson Medical Innovations is dedicated to making meaningful positive changes." As they brainstormed ideas, Aisha felt a renewed sense of collaboration and possibility. Yet, the looming issues within her company and the external pressures reminded her that the path ahead would not be easy. Returning to the office that evening, Aisha found her workspace in disarray, papers strewn across her desk, files partially open as if someone had been searching for something. Her heart raced as she realized that her office had been tampered with, a direct violation of the confidentiality she had worked so hard to maintain. Aisha immediately contacted Samuel. "Samuel, it looks like someone has been in my office. Can you check the security footage and see if anything was taken or altered?" Samuel responded quickly. "I'm on it. Don't touch anything else until we have a clearer picture of what happened." As Aisha waited for Samuel's report, her mind raced with possibilities. Could this be connected to the whistleblower's allegations? Or was someone trying to intimidate her into backing down from her pursuit of justice within the company? A few tense minutes later, Samuel returned. "We've reviewed the footage. It looks like Officer Daniels was the last person to enter your office before it was tampered with. He was conducting a routine security check, but didn't have authorization to access your office." Aisha felt a chill run down her spine. "Daniels? Why would he do this?" Samuel frowned. "I'm not sure yet, but we need to consider all possibilities. I recommend involving external security consultants and possibly contacting the authorities to report this breach." Aisha nodded, her resolve hardening. "Do whatever it takes to ensure our information is secure and that those responsible are held accountable. We cannot afford any further breaches." As she hung up the phone, Aisha felt the full extent of the challenges she was facing. Betrayal, corruption, and systemic bias seemed to be converging against her, threatening to undermine her efforts and destabilize the company she had built with such care. That night, as Aisha sat alone in her office, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on her. She knew that the coming days would test her leadership, her integrity, and her ability to navigate the complex web of internal and external conflicts. But she also understood that backing down was not an option. her commitment to justice, equality, and the well-being of her community and employees was unwavering. As she stared out the window, watching the city lights flicker against the dark sky, Aisha made a silent vow. No matter the obstacles, she would fight to protect her company, support her employees, and uphold the values she held dear. The stakes were higher than ever, and the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but her determination burned bright. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. The screen displayed an unknown number, but the message preview was clear. "We need to talk. Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th Street tonight. It's urgent." Aisha felt a surge of adrenaline. The old warehouse was a secluded spot on the outskirts of the city, rarely frequented and known for its dilapidated state. She recognized the number. It belonged to Officer Daniel Daniels. Her mind raced with questions. Why was Daniels reaching out now, especially after the security breach? She hesitated for a moment, weighing her options. Meeting Daniels could provide crucial information about the tampering, but it also posed significant risks. Trusting him was another matter entirely, given his recent actions. Drawing a deep breath, Aisha made her decision. "If there's something I need to know, I need to hear it directly," she thought. "But I have to be cautious." She responded to the message, "I'll be there at 8 p.m. Let's keep this brief and professional." As the hours ticked by, Aisha prepared herself mentally for the encounter. She informed Samuel of her plans, ensuring that someone was aware of her whereabouts for safety reasons. The weight of responsibility bore down on her, but she steeled herself for whatever revelations awaited. When 8 p.m. arrived, Aisha drove to the old warehouse, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The building loomed in the distance, its broken windows and graffiti-covered walls, a stark contrast to the corporate world she inhabited. Parking her car in a secluded spot, she took a moment to steady her nerves before approaching the entrance. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit, the air thick with dust and the scent of aged wood. She scanned the area, spotting Officer Daniels standing near a stack of old crates, his expression serious and eyes guarded. "Is Daniels," Aisha began, her voice steady despite the tension. "What is this about?" Daniels took a step forward, his posture tense. "Aisha, I need to explain the security breach in your office. It wasn't just a random act. There are people within the company who are trying to undermine your leadership and the diversity initiatives you've been pushing for." Aisha felt a chill. "Who? Why?" Daniels glanced around cautiously before continuing. "There are factions within the board who feel threatened by the changes you're implementing. They believe that slowing down the international expansion and focusing on internal culture will hinder the company's growth. Some have gone as far as to fabricate these corruption allegations to destabilize your position." Aisha's mind raced, processing the information. "So, the tampering was meant to intimidate me, to make me doubt my own leadership?" Daniels nodded grimly. "Yes, and it's not just internal. There are external forces at play, competitors who see your company's rise as a threat and are willing to do whatever it takes to bring you down." Aisha felt a surge of anger, but remained composed. "How do we stop them?" Daniels hesitated, then spoke with resolve. "We need to gather concrete evidence against those undermining you. I've already started compiling information from reliable sources within the company. But we need to move quickly before they can cover their tracks." Aisha looked into Daniels' eyes, searching for any sign of deceit. Finding none, she felt a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. "What do you need from me?" Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Support. I need you to trust me and use your influence to access resources that can aid in this investigation. Together, we can expose the corruption and restore integrity to Thompson Medical Innovations." Aisha nodded, her determination solidifying. "I'm in. Let's put an end to this and ensure that our company stands as a model of integrity and inclusivity." As they shook hands, a sense of unity and purpose washed over her. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but with allies like Daniels and Marcus, she felt empowered to confront the systemic biases and corruption threatening her vision. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the warehouse, followed by a loud crash. Aisha and Daniels turned to see a group of armed individuals entering the space, their eyes fixed on them with hostile intent. "Freeze Thompson, Medical Innovations is under investigation for fraud and misconduct," one of them demanded, his voice cold and authoritative. Aisha's heart raced as the situation escalated rapidly. The stakes had never been higher, and the true extent of the conspiracy was beginning to reveal itself. With no immediate escape, she realized that the moment had come to take a decisive stand against the injustice threatening her and her company. Aisha's pulse pounded in her ears as the armed individuals entered the dimly lit warehouse. The leader, a tall man with a stern expression and a badge that gleamed under the sparse lighting, pointed a gun directly at her and Daniels. His voice was cold and authoritative. "Freeze Thompson Medical Innovations is under investigation for fraud and misconduct," he declared, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Aisha took a deep breath, her mind racing to process the sudden escalation. She glanced at Daniels, who stood beside her, equally tense but resolute. Despite the dire situation, Aisha felt a surge of determination. This was the moment she had been preparing for, albeit in ways she hadn't anticipated. "Officer, there must be a mistake," Aisha responded calmly, her voice steady, despite the fear clawing at her insides. "We have nothing to hide, our records are transparent, and our initiatives are above reproach." The leader scoffed, stepping closer. "Your internal investigations have uncovered discrepancies in your international expansion accounts. We have evidence that funds were misallocated for personal gain." Aisha's mind flashed back to the recent allegations and the whistleblower's claims. She knew that internal corruption could be a devastating blow to her company's reputation and her own legacy. "I assure you, we adhere to the highest standards of integrity. If there are discrepancies, I expect them to be addressed transparently." Before the officer could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "Wait!" Aisha turned to see Karen Mitchell, the head of marketing, stepping forward. Her expression was a mix of fear and determination. "What's going on here?" Karen demanded, her voice shaking slightly. "This is outrageous. You can't just accuse a respected company of fraud without substantial evidence." The leader glanced at Karen, his expression darkening. "Ms. Mitchell, your company's marketing reports have inconsistencies that correlate with the financial discrepancies. We have reason to believe that you are complicit in these actions." Karen took a step back, her eyes darting nervously. "That's completely false. I have no involvement in financial matters. This is a setup to tarnish our reputation." Aisha felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. This was no longer just an internal conflict or a mere misunderstanding. It was a direct assault on her leadership and the integrity of her company. She knew she had to act swiftly to protect herself and her organization. "Officer, I request that you provide specific evidence supporting these claims," Aisha stated firmly. "I'm more than willing to cooperate fully, but baseless accusations won't achieve anything productive." The leader hesitated, glancing around the room as if seeking validation from his team. Finally, he nodded curtly. "Very well. We will conduct a thorough investigation. In the meantime, we need access to all your financial records and internal communications related to the international expansion." Aisha felt a surge of frustration, but maintained her composure. "You have full access to our public records, but accessing internal communications requires proper authorization. I suggest we involve legal counsel to facilitate this process." Before the officer could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance of the warehouse. Aisha turned to see a group of employees, alerted by the disturbance, rushing in with phones and cameras, capturing the unfolding drama. The room filled with the buzz of notifications and the flashing lights of smartphones, turning the private confrontation into a public spectacle. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Aisha knew that public perception could swing either way. She needed to control the narrative before it spiraled out of her control. Turning back to the officer, she made a decisive move. "Officer, if you have legitimate concerns, let's address them through the proper legal channels. Publicly accusing a company without concrete evidence only damages trust and hinders resolution." The leader's jaw tightened, and he glanced around, sensing the growing presence of onlookers. "Ms. Thompson, we're following protocol. This is a formal investigation." Aisha stood her ground, her resolve unshaken. "Then let's proceed accordingly. I expect full transparency and due process. Any attempt to intimidate or manipulate will not be tolerated." As tensions reached their peak, Aisha felt a surge of internal strength. She had faced challenges before, but this was different. This was a battle for her legacy and the future of her company. She knew that standing up against injustice, no matter how daunting, was the only way forward. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse as another group of armed individuals burst in, surrounding Aisha and Daniels. The leader looked momentarily taken aback, his authority slipping in the face of the new arrivals. "Who are you?" Aisha demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "What is the purpose of this?" One of the new arrivals, a woman with a sharp gaze and a commanding presence, stepped forward. "We're here to ensure that Thompson Medical Innovations is held accountable for its actions. The allegations are serious, and we won't stop until the truth is uncovered." Aisha's mind raced, her strategic thinking kicking in. Despite the escalating danger, she needed to find a way out, to protect herself and her allies, and to uncover the root of this orchestrated attack. But with every passing moment, the situation grew more perilous. Just as the confrontation seemed to reach an impasse, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second Aisha glanced toward the entrance, hoping for a resolution but fearing the worst. The leader of the armed group cursed under his breath, glancing toward the sirens. "This isn't over, Thompson. We'll be back." With that, the group turned and fled the warehouse, disappearing into the night as quickly as they had arrived. The tension in the room dissipated almost as suddenly as it had escalated, leaving Aisha and Daniels to process the aftermath. Breathing heavily, Aisha turned to Daniels. "What was that all about? Who are these people?" Daniels shook his head, his expression troubled. "It seems like there's a much deeper conspiracy at play here. Someone is orchestrating these attacks to bring you down." Aisha felt a chill run down her spine, the realization dawning on her that her fight was far from over. "We need to find out who's behind this, and why this goes beyond internal corruption. It's a targeted attack on my leadership and the integrity of our company." As they exited the warehouse, the early morning light breaking on the horizon, Aisha knew that the next steps would be critical. She had to mobilize her resources, rally her allies, and protect her company from the insidious forces working against her. Back at the office, Aisha convened an emergency meeting with her core team, including Karen Mitchell and Samuel Rodriguez. The gravity of the situation was evident in their expressions as she recounted the events of the previous night. "We are under attack from multiple fronts," Aisha began, her voice resolute. "These actions are not just attempts to destabilize our company, they're personal assaults on my leadership and our mission. We need to respond strategically and protect our integrity at every level." Karen stepped forward, her eyes filled with determination. "We need to tighten our security measures and ensure that our communications are secure. Additionally, we should start documenting everything to build a comprehensive case against those who are trying to bring us down." Samuel nodded in agreement. "I'll coordinate with our legal team to ensure we have all the necessary documentation and that we're prepared for any legal challenges. We also need to reach out to our partners and stakeholders to keep them informed and maintain their trust." As the team strategized, Aisha felt a surge of gratitude for their unwavering support. Despite the mounting pressures, their collective strength and commitment to the company's mission provided her with the resilience she needed to face the challenges ahead. Just then, Aisha's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Marcus. She answered promptly, recognizing his voice as calm and focused. "Aisha, I heard about what happened last night. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Marcus. It was a tense situation, but we're handling it," Aisha replied, her tone steady. "We need to meet and discuss how we can collaborate to counter these attacks and strengthen our community initiatives. Your support could be invaluable right now." Marcus agreed, and they scheduled a meeting for the following day. As Aisha hung up, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. With allies like Marcus and her dedicated team, she was more determined than ever to uncover the truth and protect her company from those who sought to destroy it. As the days passed, Aisha immersed herself in uncovering the layers of the conspiracy. She worked closely with Daniels, who provided insights into the internal dynamics of the company, and with Marcus, who leveraged his community connections to gather intelligence and build a network of support. One evening, as Aisha reviewed the latest findings, she discovered a pattern of irregularities linked to Jameson Lee, the conservative board member who had initially expressed concerns about her leadership. The financial discrepancies and corruption allegations pointed directly to him and a few other high-ranking officials within the company. Feeling a mix of betrayal and determination, Aisha knew that confronting Jameson directly was inevitable. She scheduled a private meeting, preparing herself for the confrontation that could either unravel the conspiracy or solidify her enemy's resolve. When Jameson arrived, his demeanor was defensive, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "Aisha, I know you're doing what's best for the company, but some of your recent decisions have been controversial." Aisha met his gaze with unwavering strength. "Jameson, the evidence clearly shows your involvement in the financial discrepancies and attempts to undermine my leadership. What drives you to sabotage everything we've built?" Jameson's facade cracked, revealing a mixture of fear and anger. "You think you're some kind of savior, don't you? Changing everything to fit your agenda, but not everyone is on board with your vision." Aisha's voice remained calm, yet edged with steel. "Your actions are driven by greed and a desire to maintain power at any cost. I trusted you as a board member, but you've betrayed that trust." Before Jameson could respond, the door burst open, and a group of internal investigators entered, led by Nina Morales from HR. "Jameson Lee, you are under investigation for embezzlement and conspiracy to undermine company leadership," she declared, her tone authoritative. Jameson's composure shattered, and he lunged towards Aisha, his face contorted with rage. "You'll never get away with this. You're destroying everything." But Aisha stood her ground, her resolve unshaken. "It's over, Jameson. The truth will always come to light, no matter how hard you try to bury it." As Jameson was escorted out, Aisha felt a surge of vindication mixed with the lingering uncertainty of what lay ahead. The conspiracy was unraveling, but she knew that the battle was far from over. The systemic biases and the deep-seated corruption within her company were significant obstacles, and dismantling them would require unwavering commitment and strategic action. Returning to her office, Aisha addressed her team with a determined voice. "We've made significant progress in uncovering the truth behind these attacks, but our fight is not over. We need to continue strengthening our internal policies, supporting our employees, and maintaining transparency with our stakeholders." Karen and Samuel nodded, their expressions reflecting both relief and determination. "We're with you all the way, Aisha," Karen affirmed. "Together, we can rebuild and ensure that our company stands as a beacon of integrity and inclusivity." As the team rallied together, Aisha felt a renewed sense of hope. The path ahead was challenging, but with her steadfast leadership and the support of her allies, she was prepared to take decisive action against the injustices threatening her legacy. However, as she left the office that evening, a shadowy figure watched her from across the street, their eyes filled with malice and determination. Unbeknownst to Aisha, the battle was escalating, and the forces working against her were far more formidable and insidious than she had ever imagined. With the stakes higher than ever, Aisha knew that the next phase of her fight would push her to her limits. The climax of her journey was imminent, and she had to be ready to confront the full extent of the corruption and prejudice that sought to dismantle everything she had worked so hard to achieve. Aisha Thompson stood by the expansive windows of her office, gazing out over the city skyline that shimmered under the evening lights. The events of the past few weeks had taken a toll on her, both personally and professionally. Yet, amidst the turmoil, her resolve remained unbroken. She had uncovered enough evidence to expose the corruption festering within her company, but she knew that confronting the root of the problem would require unparalleled courage and strategy. As she turned to review the compiled reports, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. The screen displayed Officer Daniels, the very individual she had once considered an ally. Her heart skipped a beat, a mix of apprehension and determination flooding her senses. She answered promptly, her voice steady despite the tension that gripped her. "Aisha, we need to talk," Daniels began, his tone urgent, but edged with something unreadable. "Meet me at the abandoned warehouse on Elm Street tonight. It's important." Aisha's mind raced. The warehouse had been the site of the recent confrontation, a place now steeped in danger and secrecy. "Why, Daniels? What's so urgent that you need to meet there?" There was a pause before he replied. "It's about Jameson and the others. I have information that could help you, but it's not safe to discuss over the phone." Aisha weighed her options. Trusting Daniels could be her key to unraveling the conspiracy, but his recent actions had sown seeds of doubt. Nevertheless, the possibility of uncovering more evidence was too significant to ignore. "All right, I'll be there at 8, As the day progressed, Aisha meticulously planned her evening. She informed Rachel, her trusted assistant, of her whereabouts, ensuring that someone was always aware of her location. She also briefed Samuel and Karen, her closest allies, about the potential risks, urging them to stay vigilant. When evening descended, Aisha donned a dark coat and gloves, blending into the shadows as she made her way to Elm Street. The abandoned warehouse loomed ahead, its windows shattered and doors hanging ajar. A relic of a bygone era, now serving as the stage for clandestine meetings and hidden agendas. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the scent of dampness. The dim light from a lone bulb flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows across the vast empty space. Aisha's footsteps echoed as she navigated the maze of broken crates and rusted machinery, her senses heightened for any sign of movement. She spotted Daniels near the center of the warehouse, pacing nervously. His usually confident demeanor was marred by visible anxiety. "Daniels," she greeted, her voice firm yet cautious. "What's so important that you had to bring me here?" Daniels stopped, turning to face her with a mixture of relief and urgency. "Aisha, there's no time to explain here, follow me." Before she could respond, a loud crash reverberated through the warehouse, and the sound of hurried footsteps approached. A group of armed men burst into the space, their faces obscured by masks, weapons drawn and aimed directly at Aisha and Daniels. "Freeze Thompson Medical Innovations is under investigation for fraud and misconduct," the leader barked, his voice authoritative and menacing. Aisha instinctively stepped in front of Daniels, her mind racing for a solution. "Officer Daniels, what is the meaning of this? You were just about to help me." Daniels' eyes darted between Aisha and the armed men, his expression conflicted. "Aisha, I'm sorry they forced me to do this." The leader sneered, tightening his grip on his weapon. "Save it for the judge. We have evidence that your company has been embezzling funds and manipulating data for personal gain. You're all under arrest." Aisha felt a surge of anger and betrayal. The very person she had trusted was now part of the force attempting to dismantle her life's work. She knew that the stakes had never been higher. This was not just a personal attack, but a systemic assault on her integrity and mission. Drawing upon her training as a neurosurgeon and CEO, Aisha remained calm, her mind working swiftly to assess the situation. "There must be some mistake. We have full transparency in our financial records. If there's an issue, we're willing to cooperate fully." The leader stepped forward, his weapon unwavering. "Your cooperation is irrelevant. We have enough to proceed with your indictment. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Before Aisha could respond, another voice echoed through the warehouse, a voice she hadn't expected to hear. "Stop!" The room fell silent as Karen Mitchell emerged from the shadows, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "This isn't the way, Jameson. You know it's not." All eyes turned to see Jameson Lee step forward, his face a mask of desperation and anger. "Karen, what are you doing? This isn't the time." Jameson glanced between Karen and the armed men, his resolve wavering. "We need to handle this through the proper channels. Violence isn't the answer." The leader of the armed men glared at Jameson. "What are you talking about, Lee? Are you trying to undermine us?" Jameson took a deep breath, his voice shaking but determined. "We've lost sight of what's right. This isn't justice, it's revenge. We need to stand for integrity, not personal vendettas." Aisha seized the moment, her strategic mind piecing together the fractured loyalties within the company. "Jameson is right, this isn't the solution. Let's de-escalate and address these issues through dialogue and legal channels. Violence only perpetuates the cycle of corruption and injustice we're fighting against." The leader hesitated, his finger tightening on his weapon as he processed the confrontation. Aisha could feel the tension in the air, the delicate balance between conflict and resolution hanging by a thread. Suddenly, a loud crash of a falling beam interrupted the standoff. The building groaned under its own weight, debris cascading from the ceiling. Dust filled the air, and the space became shrouded in darkness as the flickering light bulb gave out, plunging the warehouse into chaos. In the confusion, a sense of urgency took hold. The armed men began to panic, their weapons raised in disarray. Aisha saw her chance to act. "Now, Jameson, we need to get out of here!" Without hesitation, Jameson nodded, and reached out to Aisha, pulling her towards an exit hidden behind a stack of crates. They navigated through the maze-like warehouse, dodging falling debris and the disoriented armed men. Behind them, the sound of sirens grew louder, the blaring alarms signaling the approach of law enforcement. Aisha's heart raced as she realized that the moment to turn the tide was slipping away. But her resolve remained unshaken. She had to protect herself, her allies, and her company from the forces of corruption and prejudice that sought to destroy them. As they burst through the side door into the cool night air, Aisha glanced back at the collapsing warehouse, a symbol of the crumbling facade of Thompson Medical Innovations. The sirens were almost upon them, their blaring signals echoing through the silent streets. Aisha turned to Jameson, her eyes filled with determination. "We need to expose the truth. This ends now." Jameson nodded, his expression resolute. "Agreed. Let's go." They hurried through the deserted streets, the weight of the confrontation heavy on their shoulders. As they reached the safety of a nearby alley, the sirens began to wail closer, the impending arrival of law enforcement, a stark reminder of the high stakes at play. Aisha took a deep breath, her mind racing with plans and strategies. "We have to gather all the evidence we have and present it to the authorities. This is our chance to clear our names and bring the real perpetrators to justice." Jameson agreed, his face a mixture of fear and hope. "We need to act quickly before they have a chance to recover any more information." As they navigated through the labyrinthine alleyways, Aisha felt a surge of internal strength. She had faced numerous challenges before, but this confrontation was different. It was a direct assault on her leadership and the integrity of her company. Yet, she remained steadfast, drawing upon her resilience and strategic thinking to navigate the heightened conflict. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a shadowy individual clad in dark attire, their face obscured by a hood. Aisha recognized the authoritative presence instantly. "Officer Daniels." "Stop right there," Daniels commanded, his voice cold and devoid of the previous warmth. "You're not getting away that easily." Aisha's mind raced, assessing the new threat. "Daniels, what are you doing here? You were just about to help us." Daniels' eyes gleamed with a malicious intent. "I'm here to ensure that your efforts to expose the truth end here. You and your allies are finished." Before Aisha could react, Daniels lunged towards her. Pulling out a concealed weapon, time seemed to slow as she instinctively dodged his attack, the weapon missing her by inches. The alley erupted into chaos as more armed men joined Daniels, their loyalty to the corrupt faction within the company evident in their aggressive stances. Aisha felt the surge of adrenaline as she faced the new wave of attackers. Her training as a neurosurgeon had taught her to remain calm under pressure, and her experience as a CEO had honed her strategic thinking. She needed to turn the situation to her advantage, to protect herself and Jameson while thwarting the attackers' plans. "Jameson, head for the back exit," Aisha instructed, her voice calm yet authoritative. "I'll hold them off." Jameson hesitated, his eyes reflecting both fear and determination. "No, Aisha, we're in this together." Aisha shook her head, knowing that saving Jameson was crucial to their mission. "Go stay safe." With a reluctant nod, Jameson sprinted towards the back exit, disappearing into the maze of alleyways. Aisha turned her full attention to Daniels and the incoming attackers, her mind working swiftly to devise a plan. Using her environment to her advantage, Aisha grabbed a nearby metal pipe, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. She swung the pipe with precision, deflecting the first attacker's strike and disarming him in one fluid motion. The attacker staggered back, momentarily disoriented. But the onslaught continued, the alley becoming a battleground of wills and strength. Aisha moved with calculated grace, each movement a testament to her resilience and determination. She could feel the weight of injustice pressing down on her, the systemic corruption and biases threatening to extinguish her legacy. Amidst the confrontation, a voice echoed through the alleyway. A voice that had been a source of support and wisdom throughout her journey. Karen Mitchell had arrived, her expression resolute as she faced the attackers alongside Aisha. "Aisha, I'm here to help," Karen declared, standing shoulder to shoulder with her. Together, they fought off the attackers, their combined strength and unwavering resolve turning the tide in their favor. As the last of the attackers retreated, The sound of approaching sirens signaled the imminent arrival of law enforcement. Aisha and Karen stood amidst the chaos, catching their breath and surveying the aftermath of the confrontation. Daniels stood at the far end of the alley, wounded and defeated, his face a mask of rage and desperation. "This isn't over, Thompson," he spat, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "You can't stop what's already in motion." Aisha stepped forward, her eyes meeting Daniels with unwavering determination. "Yes, it is over. The truth will prevail, and those who seek to undermine justice will be held accountable." As the sirens drew closer, Aisha knew that the climax of her battle against systemic corruption and prejudice was within reach. She had faced betrayal, violence, and overwhelming odds, but her strength and strategic thinking had kept her one step ahead. With law enforcement closing in, Aisha and Karen prepared to present their evidence, knowing that this confrontation was the turning point that would determine the future of Thompson Medical Innovations and their fight for justice. Yet, as they awaited the authorities, the shadowy figure that had been watching from across the street remained a lingering presence, a reminder that the battle was far from over and that deeper layers of corruption still awaited discovery. The night air was thick with anticipation as Aisha steeled herself for the decisive actions that lay ahead, her resolve unbroken and her mission clear. The stage was set for the final showdown, where her unwavering commitment to integrity and justice would be put to the ultimate test. Aisha Thompson stood amidst the chaos of the abandoned warehouse, the cold night air filling her lungs as she faced the armed men who had invaded her sanctuary of truth. Her heart raced, yet her mind remained sharp, every fiber of her being attuned to the unfolding confrontation. Beside her, Karen Mitchell steadied herself, her own resolve evident despite the palpable tension. Officer Daniels, now revealed as the true antagonist, stood at the forefront, his expression twisted with malice. The evidence Aisha had uncovered pointed directly to him, a high-ranking officer within the company who had manipulated financial records and orchestrated the internal corruption to maintain his grip on power. His betrayal cut deep, but Aisha knew she couldn't let his treachery go unchallenged. "Daniels, why are you doing this?" Aisha demanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "You were once a trusted colleague. Why turn against everything we've built?" Daniels laughed bitterly, his eyes devoid of any semblance of the man Aisha once respected. "Because you became a threat, Aisha. Your progressive initiatives were disrupting the status quo. People like me thrive in systems that resist change. Your so-called integrity is nothing but a facade to mask your ambition." Aisha took a deliberate step forward, her gaze unwavering. "Integrity isn't a facade, Daniels. It's the foundation of leadership. You corrupted that foundation for your own gain, manipulating records and silencing those who opposed you." The leader of the armed men, recognizing the shifting dynamics, moved to flank Aisha, but Karen swiftly intercepted him, her presence a shield between Aisha and further danger. "Enough, Daniels. This ends now," Karen asserted, her voice firm. Daniels sneered, advancing towards Aisha with a menacing glare. "You think you can stop me? You have no idea what forces you're dealing with." Before he could reach her, Aisha's strategic mind kicked into overdrive. She knew she needed to neutralize the immediate threat, while ensuring that Daniel's actions would be exposed for what they truly were. Drawing upon her training as a neurosurgeon, Aisha remained calm, assessing the environment for any advantage. "Daniels, you're making a mistake," Aisha began, her tone laced with both empathy and authority. "You're harming not just yourself, but everyone associated with Thompson Medical Innovations. Let's end this peacefully." Daniels paused, his grip on his weapon faltering, as conflicting emotions played across his face. Aisha seized the moment, her voice softening. "Remember why you joined this company. We were supposed to make a difference, not perpetuate corruption. It's not too late to do the right thing." But Daniel's resolve hardened. "It's too late, Aisha. You already have," he spat, raising his weapon once more. Aisha's mind raced, calculating her next move. She couldn't afford to escalate the situation further, yet she had to protect herself and Karen from immediate harm. Spotting a nearby stack of crates, she made a split-second decision. "Karen, cover me," she instructed, positioning herself between Daniels and the rest of the armed men. With a swift, precise motion, Aisha grabbed a nearby metal pipe and swung it towards the advancing officer. The impact was immediate, sending Daniels staggering back, momentarily disoriented. Seizing the opportunity, Aisha lunged forward. Using her training to subdue him without causing permanent harm, Daniels fell to the ground, the weapon skidding across the floor. Karen quickly secured the weapon, ensuring no further threat remained. The remaining armed men, seeing their leader incapacitated, hesitated before backing away, their faces a mixture of fear and uncertainty. Aisha stood over Daniels, her chest heaving, but her posture unbroken. "It's over, Daniels. Your reign of corruption ends now," she declared, her voice resonating with unwavering strength. Daniels looked up at her, his eyes burning with a mix of hatred and resignation. "You think you've won, Aisha? This is just the beginning. There are others who will continue this fight against you." Aisha knelt beside him, her empathy still present despite his actions. "It doesn't have to be this way. There's still a chance for redemption, for change. Help us make things right." But Daniels only shook his head, his defiance unyielding. "Redemption isn't an option for me. You're too naive to understand the power dynamics at play." As he lay there, a realization dawned on Aisha. The depth of the corruption within her company was more profound than she had initially perceived. Daniels wasn't just an isolated antagonist, he was a symptom of a much larger systemic issue that threatened to undermine everything she had worked so hard to achieve. Suddenly, the sound of sirens pierced the night air, growing louder and closer with each passing second. Aisha knew that law enforcement was on their way, and she had to act quickly to ensure that the truth was revealed and that Daniels's actions were brought to light. "Karen, call the authorities. Tell them what happened here," Aisha instructed, her mind already formulating a plan to document the evidence and secure the information needed to expose the corruption. Karen nodded, pulling out her phone to make the call, while Aisha turned her attention back to Daniels. "You'll be held accountable for your actions, Daniels. This is the end of your manipulation." Daniels struggled against the restraints, his breaths heavy and labored. "You think you can fix everything. You have no idea what you're up against. The corruption runs deep, and you're just scratching the surface." Aisha met his gaze, her resolve unshaken. "I understand the challenges, but I won't let systemic corruption define our future. We have to fight for what's right, no matter how difficult it may be." As the sirens drew closer, the warehouse began to fill with law enforcement officers. Aisha felt a surge of relief mixed with apprehension. This was her chance to expose the truth and bring justice to her company and herself. She knew that the path ahead would be fraught with obstacles, but her determination to fight against injustice remained unwavering. Just as the first officers entered the warehouse, a voice echoed from the shadows, a voice Aisha didn't expect to hear. "You've made a powerful enemy, Aisha, but this isn't over." Turning toward the source of the voice, Aisha saw Linda Brooks, a longtime employee who had been one of the first to express concerns about the company's internal dynamics. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear and realization. "Linda, what are you doing here?" Aisha asked, confusion and concern evident in her tone. Linda stepped forward, her voice trembling. I had to help. I found out about Daniels's plans to take over the company from within. I couldn't stand by and watch you be destroyed." Aisha's heart swelled with gratitude and renewed hope. "Thank you, Linda, your support means everything right now." Before Linda could respond, another figure emerged from the shadows, Samuel Rodriguez, the CFO, whose calm and strategic mind had been instrumental in navigating the company through turbulent times. His presence brought a sense of unity and strength to the confrontation. "Aisha, I've compiled all the evidence we need to expose the corruption," Samuel announced, holding up a folder filled with documents and recordings. "This will ensure that justice is served and that those responsible are held accountable." Aisha felt a surge of vindication as she realized that the support she had garnered was more substantial than she had anticipated. With Linda and Samuel by her side, she was no longer fighting alone against the systemic corruption that threatened to consume her company. As the final officers entered the warehouse, the tension reached its zenith. Aisha knew that the next steps would determine the future of Thompson Medical Innovations and her own legacy. With the evidence in hand and her allies standing strong, she was ready to confront the systemic injustices head-on. But just as she was about to present the evidence to the authorities, the shadowy figure from earlier, the man watching from across the street, made one last appearance. His presence was a stark reminder that the battle was far from over, and that deeper layers of corruption still awaited discovery. "Goodbye, Aisha," the figure whispered, before disappearing into the night, leaving Aisha and her allies to face the immediate aftermath of their confrontation. As the officers secured the warehouse and began processing the evidence, Aisha took a moment to collect herself. The stakes had never been higher, and the weight of her decisions pressed heavily on her shoulders. She knew that the journey to restore her company's integrity and fight against systemic corruption was just beginning, but her resolve remained unbroken. With the evidence laid bare and the truth exposed, Aisha felt a sense of clarity and purpose. The confrontation had tested her strength and determination, proving that she was capable of standing up against the injustices that threatened her and her company. Yet, the lingering presence of the shadowy figure and the revelations of deeper corruption hinted at more significant challenges to come. As the night drew to a close, Aisha and her allies prepared to take the next steps in their fight for justice. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and opposition, but Aisha's unwavering commitment to integrity and equality fueled her determination to see it through. With the sirens fading into the distance and the warehouse settling into a tense calm, Aisha knew that the most critical moments were yet to come. The confrontation had set the stage for a pivotal turning point, one that would define the future of Thompson Medical Innovations and solidify her legacy as a leader who fought tirelessly against injustice and corruption. As she looked out into the night sky, Aisha felt a surge of hope mingled with the anticipation of the battles that lay ahead. The fight for justice was far from over, and she was ready to confront whatever challenges awaited her, knowing that her strength and resilience would guide her through the darkest of times.